if you can't stop thinking about this person, if their image keeps returning like an echo that refuses to fade, if the sound of their voice slips into your awareness, even when the world around you has gone completely still, then pause for a moment and listen carefully. Because this is the first and most important truth you need to hear. You are not losing your mind. It is highly likely that you have been in a silent battle with yourself for days, weeks, or perhaps even months. A battle between what you feel and what you believe you should feel. You may have tried to reason your way out of it, telling yourself it's irrational, unnecessary, or unhealthy. You may have thrown yourself into work, buried your attention in music, conversations, routines, or even other people, hoping distraction would finally loosen their grip. And yet, at the end of each day, when everything else falls quiet, the same presence remains, steady, unresolved, and impossible to ignore. You may have judged yourself harshly for this. You may have told yourself that what you're feeling is nothing more than emotional dependency, unresolved attachment, or a simple inability to let go of the past. Perhaps you accused your heart of weakness and your mind of obsession. Human logic is very good at doing that, at reducing deep inner experiences into small, manageable labels so they feel less threatening. Logic tells you to stop, to move on, to be stronger, to close the door, and never look back. But there is another voice inside you, quieter, yet far more precise. A voice that does not argue, does not explain itself, and does not need evidence. It simply knows. And that voice has been whispering, sometimes gently, sometimes urgently, that something here is unfinished, not broken, not wrong, simply unfinished. What you are experiencing is not coincidence, and it is not weakness. It is a signal. There are moments in life when the soul sends messages that the mind is not ready to understand. When that happens, discomfort appears. Confusion grows. You feel pulled in two directions at once, one toward reason, the other toward something invisible, but undeniable. This is one of those moments. Your inner world is reacting to a truth that exists beyond words, beyond memory, beyond conscious choice. When someone lives so persistently within you, when your thoughts orbit them without effort, when their presence returns again and again without invitation, it means there is still energy moving between you. A bond that has not dissolved, emotions that have not finished speaking, a connection that does not obey the linear rules of time, distance, or silence. We have been taught to believe that connection requires constant interaction, that if someone doesn't reach out, they must have forgotten us. That absence equals indifference. But energy does not function this way. Energy is honest. It does not pretend. It does not disappear simply because two people stop talking. If anything, unspoken emotion often grows stronger in silence. Thoughts are not empty images drifting harmlessly through your mind. They are real forces. Directed energy. Every thought carries intention, and every intention carries momentum. When emotion fuels thought, it becomes powerful enough to travel beyond walls, beyond kilometers, beyond the limitations of the physical world. Imagine for a moment that your mind is not a creator, but a receiver. Like a radio. A radio does not invent music. It tunes into a frequency already vibrating through the air. In the same way, your mind does not always produce what you think about. Sometimes it simply tunes in. If this person keeps appearing in your awareness, even when you're not trying to remember them, even when you actively resist, then it may be because you are still tuned to the same frequency. A frequency that remains active. A transmission that has not ended, even if, on the surface, they seem distant, even if there is no message, no call, no visible sign of contact. Beneath all of that, something else may still be happening. A silent exchange, a conversation taking place below the level of language, where ego cannot interfere and fear cannot censor. This is why it feels so unsettling, because you are taught to trust only what you can see, and yet energy does not ask for your belief. It simply operates. Your soul recognizes this connection instantly. Your mind, however, has been trained to doubt it. Society has conditioned us to dismiss inner knowing unless it can be proven externally. But energy is faster than proof, more precise than logic, and far more truthful than appearances. If you feel someone's presence without explanation, it is not imagination. Imagination requires effort. What you are experiencing requires none. It arrives fully formed, without permission, often at the most inconvenient moments. That is the difference. To stop suffering, you must stop fighting the experience and start understanding it. The first step is learning to distinguish between memories you generate and signals you receive. Not all thoughts are created equal. There is a profound difference between choosing to think of someone because you miss them and being interrupted by their presence when your mind was elsewhere. The first comes from desire. The second comes from intrusion. And that distinction changes everything. The first unusual sign that this person is energetically reaching out to you is the sudden intrusion of thought without a trigger. It follows a very specific pattern, one that you can observe if you are willing to be honest with yourself. Notice when these thoughts appear. Not what you're thinking, but when it happens. If it occurs while you're feeling lonely, scrolling through old photos, listening to nostalgic music, or replaying memories on purpose, then yes, your own desire is likely activating the thought. That is natural. That is human. But when the thought arrives while your attention is fully occupied, when you're focused on work, driving, laughing with friends, or immersed in something completely unrelated, that is different. In those moments, your mental switch for that person was turned off. You were not inviting them in. And yet, suddenly, there they are. Their name, their face, a sentence they once said, dropping into your mind like a lightning strike, disrupting your inner flow without warning. You did not summon this. You did not seek it. It arrived. This happens because when your conscious mind is distracted, your rational defenses momentarily lower. The guard steps aside, and what slips through is not a memory, but a signal. The subconscious does not analyze. It receives. That is where this message lands, directly, cleanly, without explanation. And because the subconscious does not speak in language, it translates the signal into the closest recognizable form, the person themselves. This kind of thought feels different. It is not heavy or repetitive like obsession. It is sharp, sudden, almost electric, sometimes confusing, sometimes emotionally neutral, yet impossible to ignore. You might be choosing fruit in a supermarket and suddenly feel their presence as if they were standing beside you. The contrast between what you are doing and what you feel is the clue. The origin of that thought is not inside your current emotional state. It comes from elsewhere. It is, in essence, a push notification from your soul. And this is only the beginning. Because when the signal grows stronger, it does not remain confined to the mind. Energy seeks expression, and soon it begins to move deeper, into emotion, into sensation, into the body itself. That is where the second sign reveals itself. When energy descends from thought into feeling, something remarkable happens. Your heart begins to behave not as an isolated center of emotion, but as a mirror, a receiver, a living instrument tuned to the inner state of another human being. This is the second sign, and it is often the one people struggle with the most because it disrupts the illusion that our emotions belong only to us. When two people have shared a deep bond, whether through love, intimacy, friendship, or a powerful unspoken connection, their energetic fields do not simply separate when the relationship changes. They synchronize. And once synchronization occurs, it leaves a lasting imprint, like two clocks set to the same rhythm, or two strings tuned to the same note. They continue to respond to each other, even when placed far apart. This is not poetry. It is resonance. In physics, resonance occurs when one vibrating system causes another, identical system to vibrate without direct contact. Strike one tuning fork, and the other begins to hum. Touch one string of a guitar, and its twin across the room answers silently. Human emotion works the same way when connection has been deep enough. This is why your mood can change without warning. Your day may be unfolding normally. You feel stable, focused, perhaps even content. And then, out of nowhere, a wave moves through you. Sadness with no story. Longing with no memory attached. A heaviness in the chest. A pressure in the stomach. An urge to withdraw or to cry that makes no sense in context. Nothing happened. No message arrived. No bad news was delivered. And yet something inside you shifted. In many cases, that emotion did not originate within you. It is a transmission. When the other person is experiencing emotional intensity, regret, loneliness, fear, longing, or inner conflict, their heart emits a strong energetic signal. Because your fields are still linked, your system responds. You feel the echo of what they are carrying, not as a thought, but as a bodily sensation. This is why it feels foreign, why it feels intrusive, why it doesn't match your external reality. You may notice sudden restlessness that won't settle, a nervous tension with no cause, a sense of pressure or unease that moves through your body without explanation. Often, this occurs when the other person is fighting the urge to reach out, replaying the past, or standing at an emotional crossroads. Their internal struggle travels the invisible thread between you and manifests as discomfort within you. The mirror never lies. To discern whether what you're feeling belongs to you or is being received, perform a simple inner check. Ask yourself, honestly and without judgment, is there a real, immediate reason in my life right now to feel this way? If the answer is no, if nothing in your present circumstances explains the emotional shift, then you are likely resonating with someone else's inner state. This understanding changes the relationship you have with your own emotions. You stop attacking yourself for overreacting. You stop diagnosing yourself as unstable. Instead, you become an observer. You recognize that your sensitivity is not a flaw, but an antenna, and this resonance does not transmit only pain. Sometimes, in moments of stillness, you may feel a sudden calm wash over you, a warmth in the chest, a quiet certainty that everything will be okay. It arrives without effort, without narrative, without reason. This too is resonance. Perhaps at that very moment, the other person is thinking of you with love, gratitude, or acceptance. Perhaps they have finally released something heavy, and your system registers the shift. Energy flows both ways. When you ground yourself, breathe deeply, and find peace within, it is entirely possible that the other person, without knowing why, feels relief in the middle of their chaos. This is the unseen dialogue of connected hearts. Silent, constant, honest. But when this shared energy intensifies, when thoughts and emotions grow dense and unresolved, the signal refuses to remain subtle. It seeks form. It wants to be felt, not just sensed. And this is where the experience becomes impossible to dismiss, because the energy begins to cross into your physical senses. This is the third sign, the moment when connection becomes almost tangible. You already understand that thought is energy and emotion is vibration. But when vibration accumulates without release, it condenses. And when it condenses, it expresses itself through the body. This is known as phantom sensory perception. It happens when the other person's focus on you becomes so intense that your system translates their energy into sensory information. Not imagination, not fantasy, but perception without a physical source. The most common gateway for this is the sense of smell. Smell is ancient. It bypasses logic and goes straight to memory and emotion. You might be sitting alone, walking down the street, or working in a familiar environment when suddenly, unmistakably, a scent appears. Their perfume, the smell of their skin, a familiar trace of soap, tobacco, or something uniquely associated with them. It lasts only seconds, but it is vivid enough to make you pause, to turn your head, to feel as if they are suddenly near. There is no source, no explanation. This happens because when someone remembers you intensely, they often recall you through sensory memory. That memory, charged with emotion, becomes an energetic projection. Your subconscious receives it and decodes it through the strongest imprint it has stored, their scent. It is not hallucination, it is translation. Hearing can be involved as well. In moments of silence, just before sleep, while reading, or when the world fades, you may hear your name spoken in their voice. Not externally, but internally. Clear, distinct, recognizable. Or in a crowded place, you might briefly hear their laughter, a word they used often, a tone that pulls your attention instantly. Again, the energy arrives as vibration. Your mind gives it form so you can recognize the sender. Even touch is not exempt. A sudden chill, goosebumps with no temperature change, a sensation of air moving across your skin when the room is still, a gentle pressure as if someone brushed past you. These are moments when the sense of presence becomes dense enough for the body to register. Such experiences often occur at critical moments, when you are about to let go, when the other person is in emotional crisis, or when a decision is nearing on either side. They are reminders that physical separation is not the end of connection, only a change in its expression. Do not fear these moments. They are not supernatural warnings or signs of imbalance. They are the physics of attention and attachment operating on a level most people never learn to recognize. And if you have ever felt that familiar scent, heard your name in the quiet, or sensed a presence when you were alone, do not dismiss it. It is a message, subtle but precise. Because the story between two connected souls does not unfold only while awake. When consciousness sleeps, truth speaks freely, and that is where the next sign reveals itself. When you fall asleep, every defense you have, carefully built throughout the day, quietly steps aside. The mind that reasons, resists, controls, and suppresses finally loosens its grip. And in that vulnerable openness, the connection reveals its most honest form. This is the fourth sign, and for many the most powerful one, dream intrusion, or what some would call dream telepathy. You may have had days where you felt strong, focused, in control. You avoided reminders, You kept your thoughts disciplined. You told yourself you were finally moving forward. And then night came. And with it, they returned, clearer than ever, closer than memory, more vivid than imagination. You wake up with their presence still lingering in your body. Your heart feels heavy or strangely calm. The dream does not fade like ordinary ones. It leaves a mark, a residue, an emotional echo that stays with you long after your eyes open. This is not failure, and it is not regression. During the day, your consciousness acts like a gatekeeper. It filters experience. It decides what is allowed in. But in sleep, that gatekeeper rests. The subconscious takes over, and the subconscious does not lie. It recognizes truth without negotiation. When someone thinks of you intensely, when their longing, regret, or unresolved emotion reaches a certain depth, that energy seeks you out. In waking life, it may struggle to reach you through noise and resistance. In sleep, it moves freely. This is why dreams become the meeting place. From an energetic perspective, many of these dreams are not symbolic replays of memory, but encounters. In the dream state, the limitations of time and space dissolve. The ego is silent. The soul speaks directly. Conversations that never happened can unfold. Apologies that were never voiced can be felt. Presence replaces explanation. That is why these dreams feel different. They are not chaotic or fragmented. They are often calm, direct, emotionally charged, and strangely real. You may dream of simply sitting together, looking at each other, saying very little. And yet when you wake, it feels as though something important has occurred. Sometimes the connection becomes even more precise. You may dream of them on the exact night they dream of you. Or you wake with a word, a song, or a feeling that later reveals itself to be meaningful to them at that same moment. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations of an open channel. Think of it this way. While their waking mind may remain silent, their subconscious does not obey pride, fear, or restraint. It reaches for what feels familiar, safe, true, and in that reaching, it finds you. Do not judge yourself for these dreams. Do not interpret them as weakness. They are not pulling you backward. They are showing you what still exists beneath the surface. Energy does not vanish simply because a story ended. It transforms. But energy, when left unresolved, does not like stagnation. If the exchange continues, if thought, emotion, sensation, and dream remain active, the connection begins to push outward. It seeks expression in the physical world. Reality itself starts to bend, subtly at first, then unmistakably. This is where the fifth sign appears, synchrony. At this stage, the universe steps in, not as a random force, but as a mirror. When two people maintain a strong energetic link, their combined frequency sends a clear signal, and the universe responds not with explanations, but with alignment. You begin to encounter their name unexpectedly, in conversations unrelated to them, in places they have nothing to do with. Songs connected to them appear repeatedly. Symbols, numbers, or phrases associated with them surface again and again. You run into people who resemble them, speak like them, or share unlikely similarities. These are not tricks of attention. They are responses. Energy attracts corresponding energy. When a vibration remains active long enough, reality reorganizes itself around it. This is not superstition. It is resonance expressed through form. The universe does not decide what should matter to you. It reflects what already does. Synchronicity is not coincidence. It is feedback. But here is the final and most important truth. one that many people miss. These signs are not meant to trap you. They are not instructions to wait, chase, or cling. They are invitations to become conscious, to recognize connection without being consumed by it, to understand that love at its highest level is not possession, but awareness. Every energetic bond reveals something about your own frequency. What you feel, what you attract, what you resonate with, these are reflections of your inner state. When you find peace within yourself, the connection transforms. When you release fear, the energy softens. When you stop resisting, clarity emerges. The universe is not calling you backward. It is calling you inward, to understand what it truly means, to connect without losing yourself, to love without attachment, to recognize when a bond is teaching you, not holding you, and when that lesson is learned, the energy will shift, always. And this is where the journey quietly turns inward, where the experience stops being about them and begins to reveal its real purpose, you. Because every energetic connection, no matter how intense or mysterious, is ultimately a mirror. It does not appear in your life by accident, and it does not linger without reason. It stays because there is something unresolved, something unintegrated, something still asking to be understood at the deepest level of your being. Many people misinterpret these signs as instructions. They believe the universe is telling them to go back, to wait, to hope, to hold on. But the universe is far more subtle than that. It does not command. It reflects. It shows you what is alive inside you so you can decide consciously what to do with it. If someone can reach you without touching you, think of you without speaking, feel you without seeing you, then the bond you shared was never superficial. It touched layers most people never reach, and that is precisely why it demands awareness, not reaction. Here is the final truth most never hear. Not every strong connection is meant to be continued in form. Some are meant to be completed in consciousness. Completion does not always mean reunion. Often, it means understanding what that person awakened in you. What parts of yourself came alive through them? What wounds surfaced? What fears were exposed? What capacity for love, depth, vulnerability, or presence you discovered only because they existed in your life? When you cling to the signs, you suffer. When you fear them, you suffer. But when you observe them with clarity, something extraordinary happens. The intensity softens. The anxiety dissolves. The messages become quieter. Not because the connection died, but because it has been acknowledged. Energy does not need to shout once it has been heard. At that point, you stop asking, "Are they thinking of me?" and begin asking, "What is this experience asking of me?" And that is the question that changes everything. Perhaps it is asking you to forgive, not them, but yourself. Perhaps it is asking you to release an old identity that no longer fits. Perhaps it is asking you to trust your intuition again after years of doubting it. Perhaps it is teaching you that love can exist without control, without certainty, without permanence. When you integrate the lesson, the universe no longer needs to repeat the signal. The dreams calm. The intrusions fade. The synchronicities loosen their grip. Not because you force them away, but because balance has been restored. And if the connection is meant to transform into something tangible again, it will do so naturally, without anxiety, without confusion, without chasing. Energy that is aligned does not create chaos. It creates calm. Remember this: the most powerful connections are not the ones that consume you, but the ones that awaken you. You were never going crazy. You were becoming aware. And awareness, once it arrives, can never truly be undone. And once awareness takes root, something subtle but profound begins to shift. The connection no longer controls you. You begin to hold it with open hands instead of clenched fists. You realize that energy responds not to desperation, but to clarity. Not to longing, but to alignment. The moment you stop asking reality to explain itself, it starts revealing its deeper logic. This is where many people misunderstand the nature of energetic bonds. They think intensity equals destiny. They assume that because something feels powerful, it must be acted upon immediately. But intensity is not instruction. Intensity is information. It tells you that something matters, not what you must do about it. Wisdom lies in listening, without rushing to respond. When you remain grounded, when you stay present in your own life instead of escaping into speculation, the connection matures. It stops draining you and starts strengthening you. You become less reactive, less anxious, less consumed by signs and meanings. You stop scanning the world for proof. And paradoxically, that is when clarity arrives. You may notice that the signs no longer feel overwhelming. They come and go like passing clouds instead of storms. You can acknowledge them without losing yourself in them. You can feel without being pulled apart by feeling. This is emotional sovereignty, the ability to experience depth without drowning in it. And here is something rarely spoken aloud. Sometimes the other person feels this shift too. Without knowing why, they sense a change. The pressure eases. The urgency softens. The energy between you becomes cleaner, less tangled, not weaker, clearer. Because clarity is the highest vibration a connection can reach. If there is to be reconnection in form, it will arise from this space, calm, honest, unforced, not from confusion, fear, or unhealed longing. And if there is not, then something equally meaningful takes its place. Peace. Peace does not mean forgetting. It means remembering without pain. It means honoring what was without needing it to continue. It means allowing love to exist without attachment, without narrative, without expectation. This is the quiet mastery most people never reach. They spend their lives chasing signs, misreading signals, and exhausting themselves trying to decode the universe. But the universe is not a puzzle meant to be solved. It is a relationship meant to be lived. Once you understand this, the experience transforms. What once felt like a disturbance becomes a teacher. What once felt like suffering becomes insight. What once felt like loss becomes expansion. You no longer ask, "Why won't this stop?" You ask, "What is this shaping me into?" And that is when you realize the deepest truth of all. Some people enter your life not to stay, but to awaken a part of you that would otherwise remain asleep. If this experience has touched you, changed you, unsettled you, or softened you, then it has already fulfilled its purpose. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was accidental. Energy always knows what it's doing. And now, so do you.